before we went to break, Sam, you guys mentioned some things about Zack Scott that I just feel I need to get off my chest because they're just so annoying. So Sam, you said a couple of these things and I just want to share my thoughts on them. First off, the idea that you can replicate Jacob deGrom is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We didn't want anyone because you can't replicate Jacob deGrom. Yeah, no blank Sherlock. Yeah, you can't replicate Jacob deGrom, but you can get someone who's decent. I mean, that logic makes no sense. The chemistry thing, and you guys alluded to, if anyone's seen my Twitter, like I am just so annoyed by that. I mean, do you think? Look, I'm not going to deny it's important. I like it when players get along. I think that's cool to have good vibes. I think it's great. But do you think Brian Cashman went down to the Yankees locker room and was like, "Excuse me, Luke Voigt, I'm just wondering, would you get along with Anthony Rizzo? Would that be okay if I traded for him?" No one does that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
The reason I brought it up is because I think this is something I didn't mention, but I think it's totally true. Is that I think Lindor, when he does come back, is going to play with a lot more. He already plays with a lot of enthusiasm, but I think he will pick up his game and actually play better with the fact that he has.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Sam, and I agree. Yeah. I think that honestly is going to help him, and I'm sure that'll help him with the mental side of things too to have Baez there. Totally agree with that. And like I said, I do think chemistry is important, but the fact that they are saying it is the most important thing is what frustrates me, and that's why I can't. Because the fact that they're saying we are going to value the chemistry first before we value the player and his performance is what's frustrating. At least that's how I feel, how it seems to me. And, the other thing is, and this is the last thing I'll say about Scott, and then I'll quickly address the NL East. And, well, by the way, all these things I'm bringing up is why I don't think Zack Scott should be the permanent GM of this team. I just don't, personally. The last thing I'm going to say is this, is because to me, it just feels overmatched by other GMs, personally. Because the thing is that, he kept saying the offers were laughable. Well, that says one of two things. Either number one, you don't know how to negotiate from a very high asking point. Obviously, someone's going to ask for the moon. Or number two, you overvalued your prospects, or you thought you were overly confident in your own team and didn't need to make more moves, which I disagree with personally. But that's not the point I want to make. The final point I want to make about Scott before I address your question, Ryan, so thank you for bearing with me, is that the whole idea of Carlos Carrasco is coming back, so that's like a deadline acquisition. Or, we're going to have Syndergaard in September. The Mets could be 20 games under, and they're not going to be. But, to say that you're planning on September is absurd when the division is up for grabs right now. The returns matter only if the Mets are still in it. It's great that Carrasco is back. It is great that Syndergaard will come back. Hopefully, eventually. It's great that DeGrom will come back, hopefully, at some point. And I agree, having those guys come back will be great. Having Carrasco come back already, even though he gave up that one home run, was great. But the returns are meaningless unless the Mets are still in it. So the fact that they're just only relying on the returns and hoping they can make it to September, I mean, look, the division's terrible, and this kind of segues into the division question. But to me, that's just very flawed thinking. And then obviously the last thing, this is really the last thing I promise I'll say about this, is that a lot of the heat is on Zach, which I think is fair because I think he is the face of the GM. He's the one that's talking about it. But Sandy has a role in this too. And what Sandy needs to realize is he doesn't work for the coupons anymore, aka the Wilpons. He doesn't have to play like he has no money anymore. Sandy, Steve Cohen is your boss now. The thing you said about Kenta Maeda, I don't remember if it was Ryan or Sam, someone said about Kenta Maeda because of the salary. I get they don't want to go over the luxury tax, but Steve Cohen has $13 billion. I'm sure they could have worked it out somehow. The idea that we're playing for money or we're getting Williams because he has a AAA option, that is a Wilpon move. Sandy, I know you were fired in between, but you realize the Wilpons don't work here anymore. I'm convinced that Jeff, who still owns 1%, sees Sandy in the hallways hey, what's up? You still work for me, right? He's like, oh yeah, that's right. I can't take it, but I digress. Thank you for bearing with me on the GM rant. This whole show has been very therapeutic for me. But to get quickly, and then I'll hear your thoughts as well on the division. The Phillies obviously feel they can still kind of go for it. They didn't make any huge moves. They got Ian Kennedy, they got Kyle Gibson, they got Freddie Galvis from Baltimore. All very solid. I think it's going to help them a lot. And the Braves, look, the fact that the Mets lost 3 of 5 to Atlanta is a killer. They had a shot. The Braves maybe would never have made these moves if the Mets had won 4 or 5 or were had swept up to the point of the trade deadline. They had a chance to put Atlanta out of this, and they didn't. And so that's why Atlanta went out and got Jorge Soler and Adam Duvall and Eddie Rosario, outfielders to replace Acuna, who's obviously out for the year, and then obviously, Ozuna, who should never play baseball again. So, I mean, that's besides the point. But both these teams are going for it. And to me, you always hear the adage in sports of like, you got to step on the gas, like really get your opponent when they're down. Like that's how you win. Don't give up. It's like in football when it's like you have a big lead in the first quarter, like you got to step on the gas. And to me, it feels like the Mets are playing out the clock. Like they're like, oh, we're in first, we can just maintain. And that's such a dangerous strategy. Like prevent defense, which is what the Mets are doing. And all these football analogies, I apologize for the non-football fans. Like it doesn't work. So I'm very worried about this division for the Mets personally.
Yeah, so I'll start with a brief thing about Zack Scott. I kind of agree. I think he is a little bit, I don't know, just out of his element. He doesn't seem like he quite belongs in the kind of negotiation that goes on during the trade deadline. And I look at a guy like Brian Cashman, and I see somebody that is really good at making deals and working his way to get what he wants. Zack Scott just didn't seem like it seemed like the market was playing him instead of him playing the market. Yes. If that makes sense.